I'm going on a nice date tonight. Can you make a reservation for me? But instead left for patient care, right? I think makes a lot of sense. Not a lot of back-end support. So I'm pleased by Topcon's healthcare from the eye initiative. I think that type of language is good for the field in general. It's good for all the players because it elevates eye care to a position where it really should be. I mean, at the end of the day, while we are we're specialists, we're also primary care providers in the sense that patients seek us out for quote unquote vision problems, but then we see that they may have, glaucoma, they have papilla edema from all sorts of causes. No, it was definitely not planned. My father's an anesthesiologist, so I always thought I would be doing
Brad Smith once said, "Our future success hinges on our ability to embrace AI and use it for good." Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nerdy Optometrist, a podcast channel for all things eye care, and this is your host, Ukti Vora. Before we dive into yet another amazing episode with our nerdy guest, I want to remind you all to not forget to like and follow my channel on your favorite streaming platform. With that, let's dive into welcoming our next nerdy optometrist guest, Dr. Rehan Ahmed. If you have been in the space of AI and technology, and if you are an ophthalmologist, I'm sure he needs no introduction, because as an optometrist, I have heard a lot about him as well. So let me get started in going through a formal introduction. Dr. Rehan Ahmed is a board-certified ophthalmologist, passionate about improving eye care with technology. He has extensive experience in the wide spectrum of eye care, from direct medical and surgical patient care to managing medical optometry and ophthalmology practice. He is also a co-editor for AI in Eye Care, published by Jobson, and CMO at Blink by Global Medical. He's a true nerd. I don't know how he manages it all, but we are going to break that through and understand his journey on this episode. With that, a very warm welcome to the Nerdy family.
Thank you so much, Vikti. I really appreciate you having me, and I love the name. I do identify as very much a nerd for a very long time, so it's a pleasure to be on here. Thank you for hosting me.
I'm so happy you like the name, because that's the goal, to make nerd a coolest thing on earth or in the eye care industry. And with that, I want to dive into my favorite first question is, how did you bump into eye care? Was it an accident or was it something that was planned?
No, it was definitely not planned. My father's an anesthesiologist, so I always thought I would be doing medicine. Although the real story, if you want to know, it's a very nerdy story. It's a nerdy story because it actually ties into AI too. Because imagine, I don't know where you were, New Year's Eve on December 31st, 1999. You're probably much younger than me, but I was a senior in high school at the time, and I was very much into AI and computer programming. And in high school, as a senior in high school at that time, I was working on artificial neural networks, believe it or not. I thought I would be computer science, go to MIT, do all the computer sciencey stuff. But I was working on artificial neural networks in C++. That's the programming language. Yeah. And we were working with a robot on a robotic vision system to identify tic-tac-toe, like to X's and O's on a tic-tac-toe board. And I was just programming all night, and I was just obsessed with it. And I missed all of New Year's, and so it was very much a nerdy moment. And that's how I got. So in computer science, I got really interested in the biological. So I was looking at the computational basis for intelligence, and way back then, and then I got interested in the biological basis for thinking and consciousness and brain. And I was a philosophy major, in fact. So that got me interested, but eventually just got interested in, well, how does the brain actually do it? I'm kind of interested in computers, but how does the brain actually do it? And then that got me interested in medicine. And then in anatomy, in my first year in medical school, I was just fascinated by the eye. I remember looking at the iris through a slit lamp for the first time and seeing kind of looking like a mountain, you see the valleys and the peaks of looking at the iris at high magnification. you constrict and dilate at the slit lamp. I thought this was like a really beautiful organ. And sight is such an amazing sense that once we lose, we realize how valuable it is. And for all the reasons that, you have gone into eye care too, those are similar. And I thought the work-life balance of surgical medical care was just, and the technology. I mean, what other specialty in medicine can you shoot worms, with a laser, or do things with a laser, and you operate? So I love ophthalmology. I think I'm very happy with the field ever since choosing it. But that's for my journey in a nutshell, how I bumped into eye care.
Oh, that's really fascinating, and I'm really interested to learn, like, how your passion for technology and science and AI, how you made sure that it comes back after becoming an MD as well. So, though there was a curiosity.
I call my mom, like, had I actually not gone into medicine and stayed in AI, I think we'd be, maybe at a different place. But yeah, no, it's been a fun journey so far, and I'm excited about it.
But as you rightly said, right, like eye care is such a fascinating industry and space. And especially right now, with the fact that this is an only organ that you can scan live without being invasive, I think that gives us so much opportunity. And we are we are one of those healthcare systems which collect so much of data. So when you're talking about technology, AI, learning and building new technology, I think this is going to be like your fun place. So I think you were able to kind of bump into the right industry and then go back to your first love, which is technology.
You always find a way. I mean, life is very funny that way. Like you have these interests when you're maybe, younger and junior high and high school. And then you go do certain things and you realize, like, oh, I'm coming back to this. So, there's some truth in these sayings of, like, it comes full circle, right? Because oftentimes, we have this internal compass and we just sort of go back to where, maybe what our original interests are, despite maybe, and we all have different paths. And, there's definitely nothing, that what I gave you was a very linear story, but there's nothing linear about the true story. It's like ups and downs like everyone else. But yeah, it was a very non-linear story, but we do tend to go back to our first love sometimes.
Absolutely. And it's best to be able to marry both your love, like your passion for medicine and technology. So tell me a little more about what are you currently doing with, like, so much involvement in AI. You are like a co-author, you're publishing articles, but tell me more about how are you pivoting or contributing your love for technology in eye care?
Yeah. So I'm the part of a couple startups, and I advise a couple others, all revolving around eye care, or at least they're adjacent to healthcare. Some going from purely AI diagnostic startups to more maybe retail adjacent type of things. Think, maybe frames and eye care, like that type of thing. But they're all tangentially related to eye care, which is, really my passion, or I think I think we all have to realize, like, what are our strengths and where do we have domain expertise that, no one else could just sort of copy. Right. So, that's where I think I have some unique insights and value that I could add. And so those are the areas I like to play in. And of course, working with Blink, which makes intelligent, smart, tech-enabled frames for ocular diagnostics. I think it's a really interesting startup, and we're excited to finally have product rolling out sometime early this summer, and particularly with myopia management. So I am I love working with optometry and ophthalmology and eye care providers, opticians as well. And so I think we all have a great role to play together in advancing the field.
Absolutely. And you mentioned about working with startups. How do you identify? Because now there are too many startups that are coming out, and you also being in the eye care space. If, say, someone is putting a startup together who is not from the industry, you have the domain knowledge, but you also want to make sure there's an ethical use of the technology. You want to contribute and be kind of a gatekeeper. But how do you identify whether it's like, which startup should you look out for? Which startup should you partner with? Where do you invest your time? Because there's so much happening in this space now. It's a little bit overwhelming.
There's a ton happening in this space. And actually, So I'll get a call like literally every week, and they're great calls. Like I had a friend call me the other day in Texas, and he had an AI startup that he's. I mean, it seems like everyone has an AI startup, but I think what's great about healthcare providers is that we see problems every day, and really, what any company is about was about solving problems, and first identifying the problem, like what are you actually solving for, and then having a way that solves a problem that makes sense for your customer and that they're willing to pay for. So you asked how to identify them. Well, I look at the problem that they're trying to solve, and is it something that their customers are first, and then there are other customers willing to pay for the technology. For example, I think there's so many pain points in healthcare that it's almost like it's so easy to identify problems. For the like making appointments. Like why is it so hard to like? I was helping my mom try to make appointments with her primary care doctor. Why can't I make an appointment Sunday night at 9 p.m. by calling the doctor's office and talking to an AI agent to make an appointment? I mean, that technology exists. A lot of people are using it, but so many more people should be using this type of technology. It's like my barber has better appointment management systems than clinicians often, and we can offer a lot of really cool technology. So I think there's so much opportunity for startups. So startups that are specific to that within Eyecare, I mean, that's a great opportunity to have. And so there's so many problems and things that insurance authorizations or back-end support or operational support or tech support, technologies to streamline the exam process. We use so much technology in Eyecare that there's so many problem points and pain points there that there are a lot of companies that are working on these. So I'm really excited. I think what we're going to see is over time is going to be a culling of the number of companies. Obviously, not everyone's going to succeed, but we don't know who is going to succeed or not. So it's a great. I think it's super exciting time for sure.
Yeah. So let's talk about the other side of this whole AI and technology is the fear that still surrounds when we talk about AI. AI is going to take away our job. It's not accurate enough. It isn't as guiding. There are no ethics or rules or regulations up to the mark where it needs to be. There's so many things going on, right? So being an MD yourself, how were you able to look at it as a tool or a solution that is going to help you versus a threat if you were to, talk about it to your colleague?
That's a great question. So I serve on a committee. It's a Texas Medical. So I'm based in Texas. It's a Texas Medical Association for AI. But here, AI doesn't stand for artificial intelligence. It actually stands for, by designation of the Texas Medical Association, it stands for augmented intelligence. And I do that distinction is very important. Not every medical society has that. I think, truthfully, maybe there's some PR in that as well. But I think it's a good point that physicians should always have. And that, we're not talking about intelligent intelligence replacing anyone. It's augmenting. It's a tool in the toolbox. It's a very powerful tool, but it's still a tool. And so the other common line is AI is not going to replace us or replace doctors, but doctors who use AI are going to replace doctors who don't use AI. And I think we sort of see that, in the sense of the workflow, the amount of patients that you could see, the amount of triage you can do, patient scheduling. For instance, if there's an office that's doing these sort of high-tech type of touch points and an office that's not, well, patients may just vote with their feet. So I think that's going to be the thing. And I sort of view AI in like 3 buckets. I don't know if this is helpful for your audience to sort of think about. It's helpful for me. So I kind of view AI as like in 3 buckets. The first bucket is AI as your assistant. Like think of like your like a good friend, like someone who will schedule your appointment. It's kind of like, hey, I'm going on a nice date tonight. Can you make a reservation for me? But instead, for patient care, right? I think makes a lot of sense. A lot of back end support. So that's one. And then there's AI as an agent, and the agent is like something that could do what you already do, and that's like an AI for diabetic retinopathy. We could all diagnose diabetic retinopathy, mild, moderate, severe, but to do it at scale, thousands of them a day, instantaneously, that's nice to have something that's acting like you, like an agent, right? And IDXDR, Luminetic Score, and AI Health, and some other, many other companies are working in this space, right? Diabetic retinopathy or glaucoma or whatever. And then there's AI as superpower. And that's kind of like your the smartest friend, alien person that, is not even human, right? That's the person that could look at a retina and say, is that a man or a woman? Would look at a retina and say, in 5 years, they're going to have a stroke or they're going to have Alzheimer's. And all this sort of amazing oculomics stuff that's advancing at such an incredible pace. So I sort of look at 3 buckets: assistant, agent, and superhuman. I think those are very helpful in communicating how AI can be used for both clinicians and patients. So you can sort of have a framework, a mental model for thinking about it.
And in all of these 3 buckets, I think that's a very apt distribution of what AI is doing today and how it's going to evolve. Where do you see us as eye care providers need to kind of be part of this journey? How do you see each one either contributing, using? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of work to do because I sometimes are worried that eye care providers, everyone from optometry, ophthalmology, that we're kind of getting left behind it. And I wrote a column in the AI, not to like shamelessly plug AI and eye care, but go to aiandeyecare.com. It's by Jobson. But I wrote an article on the smart glasses, right? Not the from Blink, the ones I was talking about for ocular diagnostics, but the ones from Meta, from Google, Samsung. I'm sure they have a few eye care providers on their team. I'm sure. I'm not one. I'd love to be one. If they're listening, give me a reply. But or you, like let's do together. But that is a huge area where eye care providers need to be in that conversation, and that's there's so many eye issues that are involved there. From stereopsis to, diplopia, to eye strain, to fatigue, that, and what other things can we monitor? Like, we need to be part of that. So I think that's what kind of worries me. I was talking to Scott about that. Like, we need to be part of that conversation. Like, this could be the future of computing. We're saying, like, instead of a phone, we're going to be on glasses all the time. And what does that mean for eye health? Like that's our space. This is our space to win. That's our organ. Right. So we need to be part of that. And so I would encourage, that's something I'm also learning about. Like, where is this going? Where's the future of computing going?
I think that's a great feedback that you shared. And I think what I would also like to reiterate is we as eye care provider need to think outside eye care. Like you mentioned about Meta, Google, they're all already investing. They've seen the potential that an eye care industry can bring to so much information that, just a pair of glasses, they've converted everything as smart, right? From your cell phones to your watches to your eyeglasses. So there's so much potential that these big players have already identified, and they are going to develop it, whether you like it or not. So it's better to just get involved and, hold your space and have a seat in that conversation so that you're able to be part of those decisions, part of that revolution or the changes that are happening with this technology.
100%, and I think another great example is Nuance, the headset, which are in hearing. I remember one of my first jobs out, we had an audiologist on staff at the ophthalmology practice, and because it makes a lot of sense. We sort of see it, and now you're seeing it done at scale. And so I totally agree that we need, as eye care providers, although we are eye care providers, we need to think about beyond. And that's why I'm pleased by TopCon's Healthcare from the Eye initiative. I think that type of language is good for the field in general. It's good for all the players because it elevates eye care to a position where it really should be. I mean, at the end of the day, while we are we're specialists, we're also primary care providers in the sense that patients seek us out for quote unquote vision problems, but then we see that they may have, glaucoma, they have papilledema from all sorts of causes, from increased intracranial pressure, from due to some, tumor or papilledema or cerebral sinus, like a sinus thrombosis, right? So there are all sorts of reasons for patients to visit their eye care providers outside of just wanting to see better, look better, etc. But we have a real value in the healthcare space. So yeah, and even beyond that, even beyond healthcare, it's also wellness. And that's one thing that we're working at with Blink, again, not to plug this company, but just in general, like, the eyelid movement can monitor for fatigue or Parkinson's, or of course, digital eye strain is a big topic. And, these not, we're talking about like kind of a wellness play here. And so I think that's also potentially, could be another avenue for a new company to start thinking about where does the eye fit in, from healthcare to wellness to from fashion to actual, seeing better. So I think there's so many different avenues that a new startup can think about. Where is the problem? Where do I want to devote my time and energy to?
I think that's fascinating. I think you've basically nailed each section or each new technology that's exciting, that's right there, that's developing as we talk. And also did throw in few ideas for anyone who's listening and want to kind of think about some ideas, find this problem innovative and think, yeah, let me think about it and develop something. I think that's fantastic. You have had your journey from being a practicing MD to getting into technology and AI. Tell me about any roadblocks or anything that you felt was difficult while you're trying to transition, while you're trying to talk about AI, being an MD. Like, tell me about some of the challenges in your journey.
Well, for me, technology was, I've always felt kind of facile with technology. I'm always kind of a tech nerd. I'm an early adopter, even with surgical techniques. I like that sort of stuff. So that not too many roadblocks there. I will say, stuff is moving so fast. It's hard to keep up. But the amazing thing is, it's hard to keep up for everyone. And I feel like everyone feels like they're just learning new things every day. And I think my advice to people who are listening is you just have to learn by doing. At this sort of cutting edge, if everyone's working on from large language models to computer vision models to all sorts of new, like low code or no code platform literally I'm working on something. I'm like, wow, I just wrote a computer program. 20 years ago, I knew C++, but you don't really need to code. You can get by. You can do like a pitch deck that would have taken you hours, if not weeks, months, in like minutes. You could do deep research using, Chat GPT or Google. So like something that I have so many ideas, I can't keep everything in my brain. Like, oh my God, it's too much. So I think the challenge is focusing. I still have this. I'm probably doing too many things, but I think the issue is focusing and really honing in. I kind of like have this multiple shots on goal analogy. I'm like, oh, just have multiple shots on goal and see which one goes in. But sometimes that's a bit much. And so for me, it's about focusing. The other challenge I think for startups is an underestimation of payment strategy, the monetization. I think that's a big issue and something we just need to talk about more in healthcare. There's just not a lot of dollars to go around. And so there could be really great technology. And here I'm thinking about my own sort of, my own issue that I'd had in terms of trying to like raise money on things that I think are really valuable. But if there's not a clear payment strategy or payer strategy, that's kind of hard in healthcare. And there's also like a regulatory strategy that needs to be clear from the beginning. So that's been I think a roadblock for a lot of companies. They think something's really, really cool. They could diagnose something at an earlier stage, etc. But the issue is, can you identify a group that's willing to get paid?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think and this is something like, even if we talk about a simple thing like ChatGPT, right? Just as you're talking about AI, there is a paid version and there's a free version. How many people would really pay for it? Even though they might be using it like so often. Yeah. You can just pay and make it more secure versus using a free version. And like, I have it for free, why do I pay? So I think somewhere the industry is also not making like payments mandatory, because you have free tools and that kind of diminishes the value of something that you're kind of putting together. So there definitely is a challenge of monetization. And I think it's also important to not over-engineer things if you don't have a real path to kind of, monetize it and make money out of it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, what I'm really getting at as well is that, we have a fixed amount, at least in the US, right? I know you have an international audience, but in the US, we have a fixed amount of dollars in sort of the healthcare space. And oftentimes what happens is that the more times a code is used, the utilization goes up and the reimbursement or the pay for that technology goes down. So, for example, a relevant code is something like it's the code for AI interpretation of retinal imaging. That the code is I think 92229, right? It's a 9229 code. That's like the CPT code, and it reimburses at a certain amount. And that as it's being used more, and that amount being reimbursed will go down. And if you just sort of extend out that metaphor, the analogy, well, as it gets more use, it'll go down even more, right? And so, one wonders if we need to totally rethink healthcare delivery to really take advantage of AI. And I think you sort of, I'm thinking that's, obviously that's a really big lift. That's a big issue, but that's sort of like where my headspace is a little bit in terms of AI and diagnostics.
I think that's a fantastic message for everyone. And I think thanks to my experience and exposure with TopCon, which has also been challenging all of us to rethink healthcare. And I think that's a very great message for all the listeners that let's start rethinking healthcare and not just eye care, whether it's delivery, whether it is reimbursement, whether it is patient care, everything in healthcare probably will need to be reimagined with technology and AI in this space.
Yeah. And when we talk about eye care being part of healthcare, I mean that really we should be responsible stewards enough that we should go in and actually be curious about our colleagues' problems too. We shouldn't just think, oh wow, they would love to get retinal photographs of all their patients, wouldn't they? And just like you would love, I'm just to pop this retinal camera in my buddy's primary care office, and he's just gonna get photos all the time. And so I've talked to my primary care doctors. They're like, nah, I'm too busy. The pay doesn't pay enough. These patients, they don't fit the criteria. Either they already have an eye doctor, or they're not diabetes, or they're touched by above. So, so I guess I'm trying to say is we want to be part of the overall healthcare landscape. We are part of the healthcare landscape, but we need to be, as we want them to be curious about us and what we're doing and how we can help them. We should also learn. So I encourage new startups to go, if they're in a general healthcare space, to go see what their primary care colleagues are doing, what their cardiologists are doing, what their nephrologists are doing, what their neurologists are doing. How can we get to be part of that process as well? In a way it makes sense for them.
Absolutely. I think building a solution for the end user makes more sense versus building a solution that you are passionate about because you are not the customer.
Yeah, it's like you're demanding people use your fundus camera, nah, I'm good,
No, absolutely. I think this has been a great conversation. I've learned a lot about your journey, about everything related to AI and how we need to kind of broaden our horizon and look beyond eye care and more into healthcare. But now it's time for a rapid fire section, which is a great segment where it's a simple segment where I'll ask you a question. First thing that comes to your mind, you just have to answer that.
Oh, don't do that. It's like a Rorschach test, and you need to the healthcare I'm talking about, the psychologist. That's the person you can see. So let's do it. I'm excited.
So yeah, first thing that comes to your mind, and it's a fun thing just for us to know you a little better. So that's the goal. Okay. So tell me about your favorite destination.
Maldives. I've been lucky to go there enough twice, and my sister just went there. I was revisiting my pictures. Over a water bungalow. If you have the opportunity to do that, everyone should do that once in their life, if possible.
Love that. A hobby or something that you do during your downtime?
Spending time with my kids. My youngest just turned 1 yesterday.
Oh,
it gives me so much energy and joy, and there's really nothing better than that.
That's wonderful. Wishing your little one a happy birthday.
Thank you.
Tell me one thing that people don't know about you.
Oh man. Well, people probably know about this, but you don't know. So I love pickleball. I'm an amateur. I have a decent duper, which is like the rating system. I'm playing in a tournament this weekend. I played 3 hours yesterday from like 8 to 11 p.m. So I really love pickleball, and don't tell anyone, but I don't wear pickleball eye gear. I haven't found the right one yet. That's another startup. Someone please make some pickleball eye protective wear for me.
Love that. Okay. Tell me about your favorite cuisine.
Cuisine? Thai food.
All right.
Pad Thai, can't go wrong.
I am a Thai food fan as well. So next time we meet, we know which restaurant to. All right. If you were to interview someone, dead or alive, who would that be? And what question would you like to ask them?
So I was planning at the end of this interview to actually invite you to an AI and Eyecare. We do weekly podcasts. So I would love to interview you next week if you're available to be on our Eyecare podcast. So let's plug that. Excited to have you. Usually Scott and I do it, but he's out. And so I'd love to have you. And I'd love to learn about the exact questions you asked me to talk about, because I know you're doing some really interesting stuff in AI too. So I'd love to talk to you about that.
Oh, thank you. This is the first time someone has taken my name. I feel like a celebrity.
Hey, for sure.
All right. If we were to write an autobiography about your journey, what would you like the book title to be?
Wow. That is good. Yeah, I think it would be, always. So I think the title would be something along the lines of always looking up, or some play on that, looking because of eye care and up just because, like I said, it's been a very non-linear journey, and on a different day, maybe I'll tell you about all the other ups and downs, mostly downs, a lot of downs, and a lot of ups. So always being optimistic and hopeful for the future. So
All right, always looking up. I think that's a good title, knowing what the journey that you have had. I know you're passionate about technology, but tell me one thing that you dislike about technology.
So what I really dislike about technology is that it creates distance. It's intended to bring people. I don't know if it's intended to bring. It just creates distance sometimes between people. Patients and doctors, oftentimes there's a computer in the way. Parents and children, there's an iPad in the way. I deal with that. Husbands and wives, there's iPhones and Galaxy tablets between them. So yeah, that's my biggest hang up with technology. In fact, I was thinking about buying all those boxes that when you come to our house, you have to put your phone in something that doesn't. But I can follow my own advice.
All right, I think with that we'll end with the rapid fire, and I think you've done fantastic. Good job. And I think I've learned a little more about you, and definitely next time we meet, we have to have Thai food together.
I look forward to it.
And with that, before we end our podcast, if you could share one final takeaway message for all my listeners.
So it's something I touched upon earlier. I think to get into AI and Eyecare, just AI, you just have to start. Oftentimes you try to plan all the steps, but we are fortunate enough to be living in a time where this is potentially, it's hard to understate how impactful this technology is going to be. And so you just have to get involved. You just have to get started. So try these tools, share your results. Please let me know how things are going. I'm excited, and I'd love to see everyone else get involved.
Love that. And I think get started is definitely a mantra we all should follow, whether it's for, getting involved in AI, starting something new, whether it's just starting your own practice, whether it's still in your, in your medical or clinical practice, start adding a new technology, building a new technology, just starting to even listen to a podcast and learning about it. Anything, right? So with that, thank you once again, Dr. Ahmed, for your time. For all my listeners, I'll be dropping his LinkedIn profile in the description. So I highly recommend everybody to reach out to him and connect with him. He has a lot of pearls of knowledge that he'll be sharing, that he keeps on sharing on his LinkedIn profile. Do connect with him, learn from him. And I think with that, thank you once again, and a warm welcome again to the Nerdy family.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this.
you.